my tough.
Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about the F-16EX throttle and stick setup from WinWing. They sent this to me a few months ago for an unbiased review. I'm sorry it's taken me a while to get to this. I used the WinWing F-16EX throttle and stick when I did the video with Gonky and in the F-16 versus the F-15EX. So it was great to try it out and see exactly, how it would perform. So they sent this to me. This is what it looks like when it's in the container there. That's the stick. Actually comes in 3 pieces. That's the base, the Orion 2 generic throttle system, which is cool because you can make it pretty much whatever you want. And then the F-16 part. So let's talk about each part. When you get it, and I think there's actually a third part for the base, but I don't have the container for that. But the stick, awesome. You get it. It's easy to set up. I'll talk about the software here in a second, but the stick is great. It's got a good feel to it. Feels like an F-16 stick. The only thing that's weird, and I'll talk about this on the throttle because there's some weird buttons on there too, but on the stick itself, the missile step / nose wheel steering button is off. And they did that for both the throttle and the stick, and I'm not 100% sure if that's an F-16 Block 60, because I've never flown the Block 60 thing, or if that's just they did it to give you more buttons. I don't know, but it's just different from the actual aircraft. But very easy to set up. Not much to it. You put it on your desk mount, or you just use it as is. It comes with a mount, just to place it on the desk or wherever. And then it's ready to go. It comes with software, which you can then use to get it all set up from there. The other piece to this, the F-16 throttle. So it comes with everything you need to set up. I will say the biggest problem for both of these is lack of documentation. Neither of them comes with any kind of instructions whatsoever. You have to go online to find them. And even then, the instructions it gives you are very poorly written and just a bunch of pictures and not necessarily indicative of what you have. So it takes a while. So I would say overall, the biggest frustration I have with WinWing is it's harder than it needs to be to set up. Like getting the whole throttle thing set up and the throttle gate and everything, just a pain in the ass. It's harder than it needs to be. I don't know why they did this way. Probably for shipping and reducing shipping costs, which I get, but I'm not a big fan of having to assemble stuff, and it was just more difficult than it needed to be. That's really my only complaint. Once it's going, it's awesome. So for the throttle, like I talked about in the stick, there's stuff that it's just weird. And most specifically, the cage uncage button. I don't know what block that's based off of because it should just be a button. It's an actual multi-position switch on here, which just feels weird. It didn't feel right when I did it. But I will say the first time that I set this up and kind of got it in position, it feels like going home. It feels like an F-16, especially, if you side mount it and everything, it just feels right. And I missed it. I missed flying the F-16. I love that jet. And this definitely replicates that very well. So what's cool is you've got the idle cutoff. So the outboard, you pull the pinky guard and out. Be careful with that. A buddy of mine did that. Going to idle, shut down his engine. Not good. And it also has, you go outboard to go to afterburner, which is realistic as well. So, and you can't go to afterburner without going outboard. So fit, finish, feel, awesome. I mean, this is well designed, well made, doesn't feel cheap, doesn't feel plasticky, feels like a good setup. Feels like an F-16, again, with the exception of some of the buttons as well. Not what I'm used to. I don't know if it's a Block 60 thing. I flew the Block 30 and Block 42s. The cage uncage thing, I don't know. I think they just gave you more buttons than you needed. That's my theory on that. I'm not 100% sure, but everything else feels right. The strap, just like putting stuff together, there's not a lot of good documentation on it, so it takes a little bit of trial and error. And throttle, super easy. I mean, there's nothing you really need to change to make it good to go. The stick takes a while to get set up. And that's my biggest complaint with anything simulator related, because, you know, you'd hope, because when you fly sims in the military, you just get in it and it feels right. Everything's all set up for you. For this, you've got to kind of mess with settings to get it the way you want. It's called Sim App Pro, and be careful with it because it actually does. It's kind of a resource hog when it's just sitting there running. So I usually turn it off because I think it's like 6 to 9% of your CPU, which, you know, as you know, every little bit, you know, you need. So it has 3 modes: fully realistic mode, which is the 1-to-1, force only mode, and then force plus displacement mode. I messed with them all. Fully realistic mode, at first I was like, man, this is good, but it just didn't seem right. So what I ended up doing was force plus displacement mode at 36%. That seems to be the best compromise and has the best feel. But when you go to the app, you can set all that up. And the best part about the app, which DCS in general needs to fix, is you can download, because remember, DCS has this problem with control mapping where nothing's ever mapped if you put a new controller in or stuff's mapped to the wrong stuff. You can download other users' profiles straight to the folder from this app. So you get a new stick, you're like, hey, I want this F-16 set up like this. Bam, bam, it's working. You don't have to sit there. You just tweak a couple things. Even has the user curves and stuff like that, so you can mess with. But I'm not a huge fan of user curves, but, you know, whatever. Also, the stick itself has boundary vibration, boundary buzzer. That's not a really realistic thing if you're using the F-16, but it's good to know, hey, I'm pulling too hard. It does take quite a bit of force, so sometimes, you know, you can actually maneuver your mount depending on how you have it set up. If you got a cockpit, it's not a big deal. But sometimes you can get yourself like, oh, hey, I'm pulling too hard or whatever. But overall, feels like an F-16 and feels correct. I really enjoyed flying it, especially, you know, dogfighting with Gonki and stuff like that. I did feel like it was more realistic, and your muscle memory is there, especially with that. So all the switches on the throttle work. Dogfight switch, using the elevation, L-strobe, all that stuff for the radar. It all makes you feel like, hey, I'm flying an F-16 again. So really thought it was cool. I was using a VPC Warbird base. Before that, I was using the Thrustmaster, which obviously those move around a lot, so they don't really simulate an F-16. This feels like an F-16. This feels like something that is more sim than game. So it's got a great feel, great fit and finish. So far, so good as far as, you know, how it works out. Don't have a lot of complaints except for the initial setup, and then that's my complaint for everything with simulators. It takes a while to get everything set up, even racing wheels and stuff like that. But once you get it going, awesome. So if you have it, let me know in the comments what you think, how you have it set up. I think it's definitely worth it. I want to thank WinWing for sending this to me and letting me try it out, because so far, you know, I've really enjoyed it, and it really makes me miss the F-16. I think that's the biggest thing, is the nostalgia it gives me. Makes me miss flying that old girl. She's a great jet. But yeah, Thrustmaster has sent me their version of the F-16 throttle, so I'm interested to see how it compares between the two. Like I said, once you get past the setup, it's still a really good throttle. Like, the throttle itself is great. The setup's kind of no instructions, what the hell. But once you get it going, it's awesome. So I'm interested to see how Thrustmaster handles that and kind of what the differences are. I'll still be using the WinWing stick because I don't think they have anything force sensing just yet. So let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you enjoyed this quick review. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.